Good afternoon to all of our viewers today. Thank you for tuning in for our weekly show, which is pretty consistent on Tuesdays. And I'm Karen Seitz with a New Life Center, and I am a mentor and teacher for married women to teach them how to find their happiness within as a way to save their marriages and have the marriage they always dreamed of. And today I'm here with David Cope, the founder of a New Life Center, and we have a great topic to talk about today that links into the holidays and how when we get busy, and the holidays are a time where we get really busy, it kills intimacy in our marriage. So hi David, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Karen, as always. It's always a pleasure to share this with our listeners and with you. And a way to introduce myself is I'm a founder of a New Life Center with my partner, Peggy. And I got involved in wanting to have healthy relationships uh, after I got a divorce in the year 2000. So when I was married, I worked very hard and tried to do everything I could to make the marriage work. But unfortunately, after 20 years, my wife came to me and said she wanted a divorce, and I was heartbroken and devastated. And after spending some time, I realized I didn't want to be on my deathbed wishing that I had that I didn't have a loving and intimate relationship. So it became a priority to me to try to find out, okay, what does it take to have a loving, intimate relationship with another person? And now I'm with Peggy. And I read a lot of books and tried to find out the secret, but all the books that I was reading and everything that was out there were the things that I had tried to do in my marriage that didn't work to make it successful. And because this was a dark time in my life after my divorce, I was feeling very bad about myself and realized that there had to be a connection to how I was feeling about myself and my ability to have a loving and intimate relationship. So over time, I began to realize that a loving, intimate relationship has to begin with me, and that happens by building a relationship with myself. And often women feel like in the marriages that they've lost themselves and they don't know who they are. And the reason is because um, you don't have a relationship with yourself, which is fundamental to bringing intimacy into a person's marriage. So Peggy and I have been spending the last 10 years teaching other people, both men and women, how to build relationships with themselves so they can be true to themselves and bring that relationship in a healthy way into their marriages so they're not dependent on their partner to make them to give them intimacy or provide intimacy rather than they can provide it with themselves and share that with their partner. So it's always fun to be here sharing all the research we've been doing over the last 10 years. And in this case, this um, presentation and video is about working with women to help them build intimacy within themselves. And we've been doing this and exploring relationships with women for 10 years. And we also help men with their issues and problems and developing intimacy as well. So, Karen, how about you and jump right in with
Of
your
course.
beginning?
Of course. So I got involved with the New Life Center about 4 years ago, training as a teacher, training as a mentor, and all of the concepts that we teach. And as a way to actually know the concepts that we teach, I have to live that.
Mm,
So I'm applying everything that we teach in my own marriage and have been for the past 4 years, and working with other women to teach them how to do the same for themselves so that they can feel empowered and know who they are
mhm,
and not lose themselves in their marriage. And I'm very passionate about what I teach and working with women because I see the transformation that takes place.
mhm.
And it is so inspiring and life changing. So I'm so happy to be here doing these videos and sharing this with David and all of you. And to get started, we always like to remind our viewers, I know for me, I need lots of reminders because these things are easy to forget and push out of our awareness because they challenge us and push us to be better in our lives. And so we want to remind you of our three guiding principles
Mhm.
that set the framework for our Facebook group and everything that we talk about. So, David, you had said in your introduction, what does it take to have a loving, intimate relationship? And what we have found is that these three guiding principles
Mhm.
are exactly what it takes to have a loving, intimate relationship. And so the first one is that you are responsible for your happiness, that there's no one and no thing, even your husband, that can make you happy, that you have to do the work to find your happiness within. And when you can do that, then you can bring that into your marriage and not look to your husband or anyone else to do the work to make you happy. And the second guiding principle is that the only person you have any control over to change is yourself. That you can't change your husband, you can't change anything or anyone outside of you. That what we're really providing here and what we really hope that you can hear is seeing the things that you have control over to
Mhm.
change in your life, because that's where you're going to see the transformation. That's where you're going to have a whole new, fresh experience of yourself. That you can't change your husband, and trying to do so is a dead end street and is often where our marriages fail. And the third guiding principle is that authentic intimacy begins with having a relationship with yourself and feeling good about who you are,
Mhm.
knowing who you are, knowing what you like and what you don't like, and being willing to show up as yourself in your marriage or any relationship, even at the risk of that relationship, so that you can be
Mhm.
true to yourself. And when we do that, we take expectations off of our partner and we can accept them for who they are because we're accepting ourselves. And that's where intimacy really begins. It has to start with us. It's not something that gets provided to us externally, it begins with who we are.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Thank
Nice and
you.
clear, Karen. Good
All
job.
right. It's a good
So,
setup for getting into our topic.
yeah, so just to remind our viewers who are women, often women get concerned in that this is all about women and the women have to take responsibility. And what about the men? And the reason why we do the videos is based upon this concept that you can only change yourself. So, what we're trying to do is to provide to our women listeners who are married and struggling in their marriage, wondering, how do I find a way out? And they're feeling trapped. And by providing an awareness that there are certain things that you have control over, which is yourself, if you can know the things that how your behaviors are influencing your marriage, you can choose to change those behaviors if you can identify what they are. So, again, these videos are meant to provide some clarity for our women listeners that these are the things that we have found over 10 years of researching women in relationship that's consistent with almost all women that are married. And that in the consistency is that one is that if you're struggling with these issues, it's normal because often we think that women think that they're the only ones that have the problem and everybody else is happy. But the reality is there's a commonality, a normal. It's normal to experience these things that we talk about, and when you can realize and see yourself in these videos and identify the behaviors that in yourself. This empowers you to change, not depending on your husband to change, because remember, you can't change your husband, you can only change yourself. But if you can identify the behaviors that may be causing you not to be having the marriage of your dreams and live the life you've always wanted, then you can be empowered to make the changes yourself. That's why we're focusing on the things that women have. There's a commonality with women in marriages. And one of them is that women tend to get really, really busy in their lives. And when they're busy, there's no connection to themselves. And especially during the holidays, what we wanted to do in conjunction with the videos that Karen and I did about before Thanksgiving and after Thanksgiving is to help our listeners and remind themselves why they get so stressed out in the holiday times and what they can do to change it. Because when you're stressed out and overwhelmed in the holidays, it takes a toll on your marriage. And the just intimacy gets thrown out for the whole month of December because there's so much rushing and so much pressure. So, Karen, how does being busy really kill intimacy in a marriage?
Well, in looking at myself in this and also working with many other women who run up against the same issues of getting so busy and so wrapped up in our lives, what happens is we become essentially disconnected from ourselves and we're not showing up in the relationship. We're not there. We're not present because we're so wrapped up in what we're doing that we forget about ourselves. And then oftentimes what happens, and again, this is just one of those normal behaviors that when we can see it, we can change it, that it's just common human behavior. We start to blame our husbands and resent our husbands and push them away because we're angry with them that we're so busy. And so there can't be any intimacy in the relationship because I'm blaming my husband for where I'm at and what's going on with me and why I have no time for myself.
That's right.
And then I'm nowhere to be found because I'm
Right.
too busy with all the things I'm busy with.
So we worked on a list working with women over the years about why married women stay so busy. Karen, would you mind sharing the commonality that we found over the years that why married women stay so busy?
Of
Uh,
course. So starting off, our first item on the list of why we stay so busy when we are married is that it's an unconscious way to distract ourselves and avoid the issues in our marriage. So we don't actually have to rock the boat, so to speak, and deal with the issues at hand that we're hiding from and pushing away. So that's one reason we stay busy. Another is this is one of my favorites is I don't want to do anything really, yet I'm making it look like I'm doing a lot.
hmm.
And that comes from the place of being a victim. Look at me, look at how much I'm doing, but I'm not really doing the things I need to be doing that are important.
Yeah, thank you.
And the third one, and this actually ties into that too, is I'm a martyr.
Hmm.
I want everybody to feel sorry for me because my life is so hard.
So, Karen, can you just remind our listeners again that sometimes it's hard because we're pulling up the things that we don't want to see about ourselves, and that's always not fun
Yeah.
to look at. And reminding our listeners that all these things are normal. Why is it important for us to see our patterns of behavior and not and kind of lift up the carpet? Why is it important to do that?
Well, as for me, I always avoided seeing the negative things about myself. I didn't want to look at the hard stuff. I
Hmm.
wanted to think I had it all together. I wanted to think I was happy. I wanted to avoid all those things because it's confronting. And then I have to be exposed for the things that I'm hiding from.
Hmm.
But what I've learned through doing this work and working on myself and my marriage is that until I lift up the rug, like David says, and shine the light underneath there and see the patterns and choices that I'm doing, the choices I'm making that I pushed aside because I don't want to deal with
Hmm.
them and I don't want to be exposed. If I don't expose those, I can't ever change them.
Hmm.
So I had to switch my perspective to see that it's okay to look at the hard stuff, that actually it's essential to look at the icky things or the things that are hard to see about ourselves because that's the only way I'm going to get to change those.
Hmm.
And once I can realize those are normal behaviors, that
Hmm.
it's definitely not a Karen thing, and that many other women and many other men and women struggle with these patterns and struggle with these behaviors, then I can normalize it and not make such a big deal out of it and say, okay, well, let's roll up my sleeves and get to work. Now I see the problem and now I can step into my life anew and make better choices that support me. So really digging these things up and shaking
Mm,
them up, bringing them up to the surface seems counterintuitive, but it's a way to empower yourself
yeah,
to
right.
change.
Thank you.
So,
And that kind of brought up because often over the years when I've worked with women and they're faced with the realization that they are a martyr,
yeah.
they cringe and say, that's the last thing I ever wanted to know about myself. I
Mhm.
don't want that to be true. And in order to make the change, we in normalizing that women stay really busy in their marriages because that allows them to be a martyr. What's the definition that we had for a martyr, Karen?
Unnecessarily sacrificing oneself for others while ignoring their own needs.
Yeah,
Another is exaggerating our suffering in order to get sympathy and praise.
yeah. So, and again, that's sometimes really hard
Yeah.
for somebody to see that about themselves. But if we don't see it, we can't change it. And again, trying to normalize that is like, oh my gosh, that's me. I didn't want to know it. Now I can do something to change it. And can you imagine how being a martyr in a marriage and being busy destroys intimacy and doesn't allow a connection of any real um, sense of self between you, a husband and a wife?
Oh, of course. It, yeah.
So then we have some more on our list, Karen. Excuse me for interrupting.
No, that's okay. This is a good one. The next one on the list is we often think that if I slow down, then it's boring. But life is going to be boring if I slow down, that it's more exciting and
Mm,
fulfilling when I'm busy and have so much on my plate I can barely keep up.
yeah.
And the next one on the list is if I stop being busy, I will have to slow down and deal with what I have stuffed,
Hmm.
meaning the feelings we've stuffed, the issues we don't want to look at or deal with, or the problems or
Right.
challenges that are up in our lives.
Karen, in the video we did about why we get stressed up at the holidays, you used the example of the snow globe.
I
And
did.
often, can you just how does that tie
Like,
slowing down you tie into the snow globe and why women tend to want to stay busy so they don't have to deal with the snow globe effect?
of course. So my snow globe is across the room. So I'm going to describe it that I like to think of us, and this is in the video we did on, and I'll post these in the comments section
Mhm.
once we get finished, but it's in the video on why we get overwhelmed during the holidays. And I use the example of that I like to think of us all as snow globes, and that when a snow globe is just sitting and all the snow and coincidentally glitter, that's my little joke, are settled at the bottom. Those are our insecurities, our doubts, our fears, our negative feelings about ourselves. And because we don't want to deal with those things or we don't even know how to deal with them, we do everything we can to keep them stuffed down to the bottom. And then life comes along, and in this case, the holidays come along. And what we don't realize is that the holidays shake that snow globe up,
Mhm.
and all those doubts and insecurities or negative feelings or unresolved feelings of grief or loss around the holidays all get shaken up in us. And we don't want to feel that because
Mhm.
we have this expectation that the holidays are supposed to be the happiest time of the year and the
Mhm.
most wonderful time of the year. So we live in that fantasy or live in that facade and get really sped up because we don't want to feel or deal with what's getting shaken up in that snow globe.
Great. So that's
Yeah.
why women tend to get really busy during the holiday season so they don't have to feel and deal with the stuff that's coming up and they race through it. Thank you.
And
We
we
have
have
one
one
more.
more.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
The last one on our list of why married women stay busy is that if we stay really, or I'm sorry, yeah, if we stay really busy, we can avoid that pain inside of us.
Yeah.
So again, we can just push that aside and not have to deal with that pain we're carrying around, whether it's old heartbreak or how we're feeling about ourselves or those insecurities or doubts or fears.
Thank you, Karen.
Of course.
So, in doing all of this and talking, we like to share the problems that are created in the marriages when a wife is really busy. So, what's the opposite of being busy is what?
Being slowed down internally
Yeah.
and learning how. I think it's
Mhm.
also really important to realize that we don't naturally come in knowing how to do these things for ourselves. I had to be taught. And I was so much in my way, not wanting to see these things. I needed some help to kind of swim through and push aside the tough stuff so that I could get to where I needed to be, to make conscious choices
Yeah.
for myself and make supportive choices that allow me to feel good about myself, allow me to know who I am and have a relationship with myself, which is the foundation of creating intimacy. So
Mhm.
the opposite of being busy is slowing down internally and starting to learn who we are so we can make those supportive
Yeah.
choices.
And being willing to connect to ourselves. And what our mind does is, I don't really want to connect to myself because at some level I don't like who I am. So if I stay busy, I don't have to deal with that issue of not feeling good about myself. And why would I want to slow down to connect? Because all I'm going to find is pain and the things that I've suppressed over my life. So with Karen, it's important for our listeners to understand there's a lot of benefits to slowing down, but often when the clients come in to see you and you're sitting in your office because you work to slow down, to be engaged, to be connected with yourself, how does some of the your female clients come in initially when you're sitting there so slowed down in each
Yeah.
session? The purpose in each session and working with them is to slow them down. What are some of the reactions that women get when you're so slowed down?
Yeah, it comes up quite a bit with many of my female clients, and after they know me a little bit and we have a nice working relationship, they'll often tell me, when we first started, I was so frustrated because everything goes so slow in here and I have to be slowed down and you're slowed down and I just want to, rush through it. I've had many of my clients ask, can we just do like 3 sessions a week and just really get through it? And my answer is always, well, no, because we have to take the time
Yeah,
to really slow down internally to see the things we haven't wanted to be seen
yeah,
that are keeping us stuck in our lives and preventing us from transforming our lives. And that we need that time
yeah.
to be slowed down.
So the fundamental way of reconnecting with yourself and being true to yourself is to slow down. And the mind wants to keep pushing you to go faster because the mind is convincing you that if I slow down, I'll have to look at all the things I don't want to see. But in order to build a relationship with yourself, essential to the strategies that we teach married women is you have to slow down, and the program helps the women slow down and reconnect with themselves. So that's why recognizing that why you're busy and the problems it creates helps you understand why you might want to choose to slow down. So what are some of the benefits that we listed, Karen, of
Yeah,
slowing down?
sure. So the first one is that being busy is a red flag or a benchmark that we're not engaged in our lives. So when we slow down, the benefit is we can actually be present and engaged in our lives and engaged with ourselves. And then in turn, engaged with our husbands and our marriages in a way that we can bring ourselves in like we haven't before and resolve those issues.
Yeah, so often when I work with women over the years, many have this facade that they are authentic and true to themselves.
Mhm.
And what I teach them and help them see is if you're really busy and running around and trying to be this superwoman, then you're actually disengaged, disconnected from yourself, and you're not being authentic and true to yourself. And that's really hard for some women to see because they pride themselves in being overachievers and to have them recognize that I'm not engaged in my life when I'm busy because I'm going so fast in my life. There's no me, there's nothing for me to connect to, which is actually the purpose of staying busy. So if you want to be engaged and have a fulfilled life, you have to slow down and connect with yourself. And that's part of the strategy that we help women to reconnect with themselves.
And also, David, tying it into the holidays, because we've got all of that stirred up in us, then we want to get really busy, and that's another way we're not engaged. And then that affects how we're showing up with our family and our husbands during the holidays because we're not
Mhm.
engaged with ourselves because we're just trying to rush through it and get it
Yeah,
over with.
thank you.
Of course, our second one is when we're busy, we believe we're productive and we're an overachiever. But the reality
Yeah.
is that when we slow down, we get the important things done
Mhm.
and we feel good about ourselves. And again, remembering feeling good about ourselves is key and essential
Mhm.
to bringing intimacy into your relationship with yourself and with your husband.
So, Karen, I'm reminded that, and I've taught you I developed a time management
Hmm.
program, and it's really how to it's really a priority management. And in that program and process, we talk about the difference between busy and productive. And
Yeah.
a lot of people get confused, but when I'm busy, I'm actually getting a lot of the little things done, but I'm never getting the big things done because that's one of the purposes of being busy is that I have an excuse that I'm not getting things done and I'm always overwhelmed. But when you slow down and try to do the things that make you productive, which are the big rocks, the things that are most important in life, you actually start creating a life that have meaning and purpose rather than running around frantically being busy and never really getting anything important done.
Yeah. And when I can tackle those big rocks or the important things, those are usually the things that make me uncomfortable, the things
Mhm.
that I'm scared of or fearful to step into because I don't want to feel that vulnerability or I don't want to face that discomfort. But it's actually when I do those things
Mhm.
that I feel the best about myself
That's
afterwards
right.
because I show myself I can and I
Yes.
believe in myself
Yeah.
and I'm taking care of myself, which what we teach in taking care of ourselves is not taking salt baths and going to yoga and getting massages. It's actually parenting ourselves to do the very things that we don't want to do
Mhm.
when we need to do them because that builds self value. So, those important things, even though it might seem like you're doing fewer things, you're actually doing the things that give you the most return of your investment, so to speak, and feeling good about yourself
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
believing in yourself.
Mhm.
So, the next one is when I'm busy, I look impressive and important, even though I feel empty and lonely on the inside. But when I slow down, I can get in touch with myself and value who I am.
Mhm. That's right. It kind of ties into what you said before is when we build a relationship with ourselves, the process of doing that is making choices consciously to do the things that make us feel good about ourselves, and often those are the things that are the hardest things to do, but makes us eventually makes us believe in ourselves and know that we can accomplish the things that our mind is convincing us is too scary and hard. And when we stay busy, we avoid those things so we don't have to do the things that are hard and scary. So thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Our next one is when I'm busy, I tell myself I am fulfilled, even though I'm bitter and angry on the inside. But when I slow down, I can make choices that support me
Mhm.
and create the life I have always dreamed of. That a lot of times when we are so busy and looking like we're fulfilled, we're often really resentful of the things that we're doing because it feels like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I have to be doing all of these things. So
Hmm.
we're not making a choice for ourselves
That's right.
to be doing those very things.
Yeah, there is no self awareness when you're busy. Yes.
Oh, yeah. And the last one, I make sure I'm on track here. Yep. When I am busy, I project to others that I have it all put together, even though I feel strung out and overwhelmed. But when I slow down, I can choose to be authentic and be true to myself.
Hmm. That's pretty important. I know most people would like to feel like they are true to themselves and are being authentic. But when you're busy, you're creating a facade that you're supporting. When you slow down, you can re-engage and be mindful and reconnect with yourself. And then that's when you can make choices to be true to yourself. Karen, can you just talk just before we wrap up? Why does keeping busy to tie in put keep women's walls up, which prevent intimacy? Why
Yes.
does that uh, continue the process of keeping a woman's walls up? Which when a woman has their walls up, they push their husband away, and then they project onto the husband that their husband is the source of their unhappiness. How does being busy fortify those walls?
It's
And
yeah, it does. And when we're, again, like I just said a moment ago, when we're really busy and our plates are really full, a lot of times we're doing all the things that we think we're supposed to be doing.
mhm,
But again, there's no me in that. I'm not choosing to do those things. I'm doing them because I think I'm supposed to, or that's what's expected of me. And what happens when we operate from that place is we build up a lot of resentment, we build up a lot of anger and a lot of blame. And when we're married, our husband is naturally the person that gets the most of that resentment
mhm,
and anger and blame. And those are our walls. When we have that resentment and anger and blame going on, that's the place that we put our walls up and push our husband away. And what we don't realize what we're doing when we're with a good man and we're a woman with our walls up is that then he responds to that and reacts to that negatively. He pulls away because he feels us pushing them away. And that's where intimacy gets destroyed when we have our walls up because we're not letting them in, we're not letting ourselves in. And that's the whole purpose of being busy, is I
mhm.
can keep those walls up and keep a distance, and I don't have to be connected to myself, and I don't have to be connected to my husband.
And also, and thank you, Karen. Well
Mhm.
done. It also breeds this sense of everything's on me, and I have the full load of the responsibility on of my marriage. And if I don't accomplish these things and do things, nothing ever will get done. And what that does is that, and then you project on your husband as, well, he's not doing this. He doesn't pick up the piles in his house. I can't count on him to follow through in the finances, and he doesn't do this. And before you know it, there's this huge laundry list of what your husband isn't doing because you're so focused on being so busy and trying to overachieve and overaccomplish that you feel resentful in yourself. And the only place you can realize where that resentment is coming from is your husband. So
Yeah.
these are the reasons why we try to bring up in these videos the things that, as women in their marriages, what can you do to make the changes in yourself so that you can begin to create an intimate relationship? But if you don't know that being busy is it kills intimacy because you're projecting on your husband is that he's not supporting me and I have to do everything myself, then there's no opportunity for intimacy. But if you can choose to see, oh my gosh, that is me, and know that it's normal, then you can start, okay, what choices can I begin to make to re-engage with myself and slow down and make different choices and not taking on so many things and finding time for myself and building a relationship that feels with me fills up me, because when you're busy, there's no filling of yourself up. It's constantly emptying and emptying and emptying. And what happens in a marriage is the husband he gets the brunt of that feeling of the emptiness, and the intimacy just goes out the window. So, Karen, can you kind of wrap up for today? And
Yeah,
that would be
of,
great.
of
What's the
course.
summary? What was the important topics that we wanted to talk about today?
Yeah, so the what we were talking about today that's so important, especially around this time of year with the holidays, is that when we get really busy as women in our marriage, it kills the intimacy within ourselves and with our husbands because we're so wrapped up in everything we think we're supposed to be doing and need to be doing, and we're not there, we're not present, we're not engaged in our lives. And as a result, we get really resentful and build up a lot of anger and blame, and then throw our walls up and push our husbands away. And it's from that place that we're experiencing the challenges and problems that we are in our marriage. And the reason we want to look at it that way is because it shows you what you have control over to change in
Mhm.
your marriage and to empower you. It's not meant to beat yourself up or, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Or how come this all falls on my shoulders? It's to actually give you a chance to change the things you have control over, which is yourself. And
Mhm.
that when you do that, you can have a whole new marriage and a whole new life. And the opposite of being really busy that allows us to show up in a whole new way and have a whole new life is really slowing down internally so we
Mhm.
can really be engaged with who we are and engaged with our lives and be making the choices that support us to help us feel good about
Mhm.
ourselves. And when I can make choices that support me, that's me building a relationship with
Mhm.
myself,
That's right.
and then through doing that, I feel good about myself. And that's exactly where intimacy begins so that we can show up in our marriages without our walls down, without expectations, and just be who we are. But in order to know who we really are and show up as ourselves again, we have to slow down internally and
Mhm.
face the things that we've been avoiding and
Mhm.
stuffing down by
Yeah.
being busy. So,
Well said, Karen.
thank you. Thank you. And then also in wrapping up, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, I am the busy queen. That is completely me. And our message is speaking to you, and you want to see how taking down your walls and slowing down internally can help you to transform your life and transform your marriage, then let's have a conversation. You can private message me and we'll set up a free 1 hour breakthrough call where we'll get you really crystal clear on the real
Mhm.
issues in your marriage, not the stories that you're telling yourself, where you would like to be and how you can get there. And if we can help you get there, then we'll talk about that too. But it all begins with a phone call. So if you're ready to take that step, then private message me and we will get something set up.
Great. Thank you,
Yeah.
Karen. It's always fun to share these, and I appreciate you. You're really a true teacher, and everybody at a New Life Center, we pride ourselves in taking responsibility for our happiness, our relationships, and we're true teachers, trying to do the things in our lives that we're teaching, so that we can share that from a place of accountability and responsibility within ourselves. And thank you, Karen, for being here and sharing yourself. It's always a treat. And thank you to our listeners who allowing us to share these novel concepts and ideas of empowering yourself as women to create the marriage and the life that you've always dreamed of.
Hey, thank you so much, David.
Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a nice day.